What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Fossil Cup, which is something I definitely didn't expect to be doing whilst we have access to the Open Great League, but today's feature Pokemon actually has a ton of play in this meta, and that Pokemon is Rapid Strike Urshifu. Now last season this Pokemon made its debut with one of the most annoying evolution requirements yet, needing to win 30 Raid or Dynamax battles against either Water or Dark-type Pokemon, depending on which evolution you are wanting. Now I'll be completely honest, I didn't buy the paid research for the extra Cubfu encounter, so I only had access to one of these Pokemon, and I would have preferred the Single Strike Urshifu, the Dark and Fighting type Pokemon, but it genuinely felt impossible to do enough Raids and Dynamax battles to evolve it since there aren't always Dark type Pokemon in Raids, and the only Dark type Dynamax Pokemon currently available is Sableye, a Pokemon I have hardly seen over the past few weeks. Water types on the other hand seem to be a lot more common, especially in Dynamax battles right now, so I opted for this form in the end. Now it does have a lot of play in this meta, but you absolutely need to keep it clear from Jellicent, which I might add is absolutely everywhere in this meta as well, as Urshifu gets completely walled by it, which is why I'm running Berserker in the lead, which can deal with it, and also Taurus as the safe swap, hopefully to bait out any Jellicent lurking in the back. I started things off with an 80% win rate in my first 4 sets, losing just a single battle in every set. However, in my final set, I ended up losing 2 battles where the match didn't even begin on my end, and then after that, I was really tilted. I ended up losing 2 more battles, going 1 and 4. But yeah, when the game isn't completely screwing me over, this team was actually really good. With that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. Which Pokemon do you just refuse to evolve/fuse because of how extreme the requirements are for it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And with that being said, let's get into the battles now. So going into the first battle, in Berserker into Greninja. So honestly, not the best matchup, but I've got 2 very good answers in the back. So I'm going to say swap into my Taurus, and things are working exactly as planned. Baiting out the Jellicent, firing off the Trailblaze. The first one does just under 50% of their HP. However, I can take a Shadow Ball from this range. The opponent actually baits with a Surf, which is definitely fine with me. I'm now going to look to throw Trailblaze number 2 on the CMP type, and I will win the Zero Shield scenario after that bait. So I'm definitely just going to let the Taurus go down. Surf is going to be coming through. I'm going to come back in with that Berserker, and the opponent going to reach a last second charge move, but this is just going to be another Surf, so I'm going to no shield this. The opponent comes back in with Greninja, but they do not throw straight away. As a result, close combat, grabs the final shield. I can now swap into my Urshifu, catch what's likely going to be a Night Slash, which is resisted. Both moves would be resisted, however, of course, Night Slash going to do a lot more, a lot less damage than a Hydro Cannon. We get the counter farm down, and their final Pokemon gonna be a Registeel, and this is an easy matchup for the Urshifu, especially ahead on energy. Dynamic Punch gets the one shot. We can actually counter, farm down the Jellicent, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG stop in there into the next battle. We're going to see Ferrothorn in the lead. So this is a great lead matchup for me. I'm going to wait for the opponent to throw their charge move first, and they're actually going to throw immediately here, and also throwing on alignment. They go for the Power Whip, which we do resist. Of course, I don't want to go for a close combat before they throw because I will debuff my defense, but now I'm happy to send both of these here as they shield the first one. We go straight for close combat number 2, but what I actually don't want to do is give them more farm here. So I'm actually going to swap into my Taurus, and once again, baiting out the Jellicent. So Taurus doing its role incredibly well here as we fire off the Trailblaze. And now at this point, last time I did not shield, I might consider shielding this time. Yes, I'm going to shield. They do once again bait with a Surf. However, they are now just going to fire off another Surf, which gives Taurus the opportunity to massively over-farm. I'm going to farm up to very close to 100 energy, fire off the Trailblaze. Of course, Trailblaze going to hit for super effective damage. Going to wait to see what they come in with here. If it's the Ferrothorn, I'm going to go for an Aqua Jet, but they actually come in with Gastrodon, and we're loaded on energy, so Trailblaze gets the one shot there. They come back in with the Ferrothorn. They do have to throw a charge move here. They cannot commit to the farm down, and as a result, we can come in with the Urshifu, commit to a counter farm down. We still had a shield, which is why they didn't throw, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG swap in there into the next battle. We're going to see a Magcargo in the lead. So, of course, not ideal for me. I've got 2 very strong answers in the back. The opponent is going to hard punish us, though, as we come in with our Taurus. They come in with a Mantine. Trailblaze, not going to do too much damage there. I'm hoping that if I shield once, I can grab a shield back from the opponent. So, I'm actually going to shield this as they fire off the Aerial Ace. I have got them into the yellow health range here, so Trailblaze probably going to grab a shield. But no, they actually no-shield, recognizing they can live that still. So I'm actually forced to double shield my Taurus here. I need switch advantage. And we do come out, of course, with a charge we've loaded. They're going to come in with a Credilli. We're double boosted, so Aqua Jet does force a shield from the opponent. And now we can come in with the Berserker, of course, going to completely wall the energy here, unless they're running Bulldoze, which is very unlikely, and it's a rubbish move anyway, so they probably wouldn't have it. And either way, we're going to go for the close combat now. This should be grabbing the final shield from the opponent, so now we can swap into the Urshifu, completely wall the energy. If they full send an overheat, that will still do a lot of damage, but they fire off the Rock Tomb, perfectly fine with me. I'm going to look to overfarm, throw an Aqua Jet on the CMP tie, winning CMP, getting the KO there, and remember, I have been debuffed, so what I don't want to do is throw the Aqua Jet on CMP, because if the opponent committed to the farm down there, we might end up losing. So instead, I force them to throw their energy straight away, which means Berserker can come in, outpace them to the close combat. Close combat gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG to open there into the next battle. We're going to see a Pelipper in the lead. So, this is definitely where we want to see it. However, of course, both my back Pokemon, whilst we're going to take super effective damage from the fast move, can resist the Weather Ball. So, I might look to eventually catch a Charge Move onto my Taurus. And again, also, just in case they do have a Jellicent, I do need to preserve some health on my Berserker. So, we go for the Trailblaze, we swap, we catch the Charge Move onto the Taurus here. And the opponent going to go for that Weather Ball straight away before swapping into a Razor Leaf Ludicolo. So, not the Jellicent, but we did need to bait this Pokemon out. So Trailblaze is going to connect. It doesn't do much damage there, but of course Aqua Jet is double resisted, so Trailblaze definitely the right move to go for there. We're going to come back in, and again going to fire off another Trailblaze, this time expecting to grab a shield from the opponent, and we do. We boost up our attack. They do get the Razor Leaf farm down, but they are fairly low. They're only going to reach one charge move here. The opponent going to fire for Scald, but Scald does not drop our attack. I commit to the full farm down there, and their final Pokemon going to be a Lucario, but unfortunately, my stats are pretty awful. You can also see the CP, it doesn't go close to 1500 CP either, and as a result, we do not reach 2 Aqua Jets. They can just Force Palm, farm me down, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. So, GG to opponent there, and by the way, if you're wondering why the stats on my Urshifu are so bad, I did trade for this Pokemon as my initial Urshifu was slightly too high in CP to fit into the Great League if I evolved it. And yeah, unfortunately, I ended up with this one, which did easily fit into the Great League. It's actually level 15.5, but yeah, obviously not reaching a great CP. I believe if I power up once, it goes to like 1504. But anyways, we fire off the Trailblaze here. The opponent, whilst I've not been commenting on this battle, has double baited me with back-to-back Fell Stingers, then full sending the Wild Charge. But with that Wild Charge, of course, dropping their defense, we can definitely come in, get that counter farm down, and the opponent is going to come in with a Ferrothorn. So here, I will reach the Dynamic Punch, but I don't know what they've got in the back. So I'm actually going to catch the charge move here, and let's see, the opponent's going to stay in with that Ferrothorn, and the opponent going to swap, catch a charge move, but they're catching a Close Combat. Close Combat does huge damage to the Shadow Scissor, and they're still not going to be able to farm me down, despite the fact that I have just debuffed my defense. And even if I didn't reach the Close Combat here, it doesn't really make a difference, as we did have a Dynamic Punch loaded on the Urshifu, but didn't matter, as Berserker able to close out that game, and we're able to take it there. So GG's to that trainer into the next battle, actually seeing a Jellicent in the lead this time around, so this is fine with me. The opponent's then going to swap into a Ferrothorn, and this is a little bit awkward here, just because unfortunately Close Combat isn't quite going to get the one shot here, so I'm forced to throw a Trailblaze on the CMP tie, winning CMP, but now I'm debuffed here, whilst of course this is going to be a Power Whip. I would just barely live it. I am going to shield, but I'm actually going to swap into Taurus, force the opponent to come back in with their Jellicent, and this is fine with me. But the opponent does full send the Shadow Ball this time around, and whilst that does not get the KO, if they want to shield here, they can then commit to a massive Hex farm down. They actually no shield though, so that's fine with me. I've actually put them into range where even if Berserker does get KO'd by a Shadow Ball, I should be able to counter farm them down with the Urshifu. So I'm actually going to no shield here, and the opponent is going to full send that Shadow Ball, which is not ideal, as we do just go down straight away. And honestly, I don't know how much energy they've got anymore, so I'm actually going to shield this. It's just a Surf Bait there, which is unfortunate, but we get that counter farm down, and they've got a Fire Fang Marwar, and this is fine with me. I can reach back-to-back Aqua Jets here, of course, resisting the Fire Fangs. They take quite a long time to reach a Play Rough, so as a result, we can fire off back-to-back moves. First one, grab the shield. Second one, gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there into the next battle. We're going to see Berserker into a Klefki. So, this is an okay matchup for me, but I'm actually going to swap out into my Taurus here, looking to bait out any potential problems to my backline, and we see a Shadow Gyarados. So, whilst, of course, they are going to take neutral damage from the Trailblazers, I'm going to resist all their charge moves, but the Dragon Breaths are just doing so much damage here that Aqua Tail does actually get the KO. However, we have put them into range where Berserker can come in, get that Shadow Claw farm down before they even reach the next move. And as well, I'm also going to be able to reach a close combat here before they even reach a foul play. So close combat, gonna be no shielded. They actually swap at the same time, predicting a swap on my end, but we can come in with the Urshifu, and we can just commit both shields here if we need to, commit to a full counter farm down, and this game is going to be over here. We can fire off Aqua Jet going to be shielded by the opponent. I don't mind that whatsoever. We can use our final shield, and remember that Klefki still only has energy for a foul play. They need 2 more Astonishes, I believe, to reach a play rough, which they're just not going to get to before I get them incredibly low. The opponent does just settle for the foul play. That is going to be resisted. I'm able to tank it, and we do get a simultaneous KO. Of course, we still had Berserker in the back, and so I'm able to take that game. So, GG to opponent there into the next battle. We see a Marwile in the lead. I stay in initially just to guarantee that it was Fire Fang there. Of course, Marwile does have access to quite a lot of fast moves and quite a lot of viable ones as well, with Fairy Wind and Astonish as other options. But either way, we swap into Taurus. This time they're actually on Bullet Seed on their Mantine, which is actually possibly slightly worse for me, just because there's no way I can win this matchup, even in the 2-shield scenario here, because they're just going to outpace me to charge moves. But either way, we get them fairly low. I'm going to have to let this move go through here, as the opponent is going to go for a Water Pulse, dealing quite a lot of damage. We get the Shadow Claw farm down. I'm swapping out straight away, but they've got a Lantern in the back, so unfortunately, kind of just being hard countered here. I am going to shield. I'm still going to try and play this out here. I think I'm going to need to bait with an Aqua Jet, so I'm going to overfarm massively, fire off the Aqua Jet here, looking to grab the first shield, but the opponent actually calls the bait there. I wonder if I full sent the Dynamic Punch, if I would have got the farm down there. But either way, at this point, we do full send it, but we're just too low from that spark damage that they can come in, Fire Fang, farm down the Urshifu, and of course, there's no point shielding here. This game is well and truly over. The opponent 2 shield flexing on me, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's to that trainer. Into the next battle, going to see a Credilli in the lead. A great lead matchup for the Berserker. I'm not going to throw straight away here. The opponent is going to go and Rock Tomb, debuff my attack there, but you can see I can live a second one. However, of course, if I go for close combat, I am going to drop my defense. So either way, I'm going to outpace them though, as they did throw on alignment the first time around. We fire off the Trailblaze, grab a shield from the opponent. At this point, you know what? I'm actually just going to let Berserker go down here. A little bit risky, but I will come in with the Taurus, just in case they do have a Jellicent in the back here. But they come in with a Gastrodon, and I'm going to go straight for the Trailblaze. Trailblaze is going to be double super effective. It nearly gets the one-shot. Their final Pokemon going to be a Ferrothorn, and we've seen this already. Urshifu can comfortably go for a double shield, fully counter farm them down. They actually go for an Acid Spray there. Doesn't really matter. This is going to be a second Acid Spray. I really don't care. They're not going to get off a charge move on the Gastrodon. One more counter will be taking them out there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent into the next battle. Going to see Berserker into a Ferrothorn. So, once again, a great lead matchup for the Berserker. I'm going to stay in this matchup, at least initially. The opponent, once again, going to throw a move straight away here. And the opponent is going to go for an Acid Spray before swapping and looking to snipe with a Lucario, which is a smart play there, as you can see. I panicked for a little bit there. I stayed in for way too long. I'm going to grab a shield advantage, though, and now I'm going to come in with my Urshifu. Look to shield once. Go for the counter farm down here. However, if they do have a Jellicent, things could get a little bit tricky. But they come in with a Shadow Samurott. I'm going to throw a Dynamic Punch, throwing on CMP, winning CMP. Dynamic Punch grabs the final shield. And this game should be well and truly over. Of course, Hydro Cannon, going to get the KO from that range. But we can come in with the Paldean Taurus. I'm just going to no-shield this. Pretty much everything they can throw. Actually, I think everything they can possibly throw is resisted. So now I'm going to overfarm massively, fire off the Trailblaze here. And whilst, yes, I'm going to be boosted, I'm fairly low, so I might as well just swap back into Berserker, go for the close combat here just before they do reach the next charge move. And close combat, super effective. It gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG Super there into the next battle. Going to see Golisopod in the lead. So, this is a bit of an awkward matchup for me. I'm going to stay in initially here. They will outpace me to the first move, and they do throw straight away. So, what I'm going to do, shield this up. And by the way, if they're not on Aerial Ace, both my Pokemon do technically wall this Pokemon. But likewise, I can't really hit for too much damage either. I've only got Trailblaze for neutral coverage. So now I'm going to swap Cash the second charge move onto my Taurus as they fire off the Aqua Jet, and again baiting out the Jellicent. So this is exactly what we want here, but I'm going to throw a Trailblaze on the CMP tie. However, if they bait with a Surf is not going to get the KO here. So they're actually going to get a very nice farm down, and they do go for the Surf there. That is very frustrating on my end because now they're going to come out with a decent amount of energy. So I'm going to come back in with the Berserker. I can technically live a Surf here, but if I do no shield this, I put myself into range where they can just farm me down, and here I'm not able to commit to the farm down. Potentially what I should have done is just thrown the Trailblaze, 1 CMP. Of course, if they shielded there, I would have KO'd through the shield as they were on 1 HP, but now unfortunately, there's not a lot I can do as we come in with the Urshifu. The opponent is going to massively overfarm, farming up to back-to-back charge moves, and of course, from this range, Surf gets the KO there, and whilst I do have a Trailblaze loaded, it doesn't matter. We can stall out the loss here, but the opponent does have the charge move loaded, and from this range, Surf definitely takes out Berserker there, and unfortunately I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. You can see an Aegislash in the lead. So this is going to be an interesting Pokemon. This is the first time I think I've actually faced up against it. Of course, I've seen a few videos of it, mostly from when it was just completely busted on release, where it had that defense stat multiplier of 100, which is genuinely insane. I don't understand how that released like that. But anyways, we're going to shield here as they will be swapping to the Blade form to throw the charge move. Shadow Ball, of course, would have probably one-shot me there. But now they're going to swap into a Gastrodon. I'm quite loaded on energy, so I'm actually going to fire off back-to-back Trailblazes, look to grab both shields from the opponent, and then swap into my Tauros. And Tauros, remember, does have access to Trailblaze itself, so this is still a good matchup for me. But I think I'm actually going to end up shielding the Body Slam there. That is a little bit unfortunate for me. At this point, I probably should have over-farmed here, but I fire off the Trailblaze straight away. Trailblaze gets the KO, and here, I don't know if that is a glitch, but they come in the Blade form there. We can see a few Psycho Cuts coming through before they swap back into the Shield form, and then swapping back into the Blade form again as they fire off the charge move. So I don't really know what's happening there, but I come in with the Urshifu, and unfortunately, well, I came in with the Urshifu expecting the opponent to swap out straight away. However, they come in with a Jellicent. I do look to throw on CMP, which is actually perfect for me as they end up throwing the Shadow Ball. It gets the one-shot, and I have just about enough residual energy to reach a Trailblaze. And this Berserker, it is attack weighted, as you can see on the IVs on the right-hand side of the screen, and as a result, the Trailblaze gets the KO. I'm able to outpace them to a second Trailblaze, taking out the Aegislash there, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to open there into the next battle. We're going to see Berserker into a Ferrothorn. So once again, really good matchup for me. But even better, the opponent safe swaps into Jellicent. And this is so much better for me because now we can fire off the Trailblaze straight away. That is good timing as the opponent is one turn behind after that swap. I can just safely shield up once, go for a full Shadow Claw farm down, coming out close to a close combat here. And now I'm going to fire off a Trailblaze. So Trailblaze, of course, should be shielded at this point. I'm already boosted. I swap into my Tauros, and the opponent ends up throwing on CMP, which is huge for me. Trailblaze gonna be coming through. They do no shield this time around, but it doesn't really matter. The opponent fires off an Icy Wind, debuffing my attack there. That's perfectly fine, of course. My charge moves are going to be resisted, so the opponent should be no shielding in this matchup, but Aqua Jet does get them fairly low. They can go for a huge farm down, but it doesn't really matter. The opponent has to fire off a Thunder to get the KO, which they do. But now we can come in with the Urshifu, just safely shield up the Power Whip, and that Poliwrath is not going to reach another charge attack here. So we can just commit to a full counter farm down, the opponent recognizing that, and so they just concede the match. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You can see Galissapod in the lead once again. So, the opponent is going to swap straight away into a Shadow Alolan Dog trio. And I am ever so slightly slow to swap out there. And as a result, they do end up reaching a Mud Bomb before I get the full counter farm down there, which is obviously not ideal for me. But we are going to see the Galissapod coming back in. They are on Shadow Claw. I think Shadow Claw is the preferred moveset for this meta. We fire off the Dynamic Punch on CMP, winning CMP, and getting them fairly low as well. They fire off the Aqua Jet. I'm going to come back in with Berserker, and their final Pokemon is Lucario. And again, not the fastest on the swap there. We're going to shield this move. I need to commit to a double kick farm down. If I throw a move, they definitely get to a charge move, but they end up living this with 1 HP and a dream. And as a result, my dreams are going to end here as the opponent now has 2 shields and a Galissapod. There's nothing I can do anymore. If I get that farm down, of course, we come out with back-to-back charge reloaded, and that's probably a comfortable win for us. But unfortunately, as they survive on 1 HP and win CMP, obviously, we end up losing there, but GG's, very well played to that opponent. Also, quite a cool team there with the Lucario and the Shadow Dog trio in the back. But anyways, into the next battle, we're going to see a Jellicent in the lead here, and we are going to win the 1-shield scenario. However, I'm actually going to bank this energy, swap into my Tauros. The opponent will have to overfarm here if they want to reach a Shadow Ball, in which case I can outpace them to the Trailblaze. Trailblaze, going to be no shielded. We boost up our attack. They're going to come in with a Ferrothorn, and I recognize right now, if I go for an Arc Jet, whilst we are boosted, it is resistant damage. It's not going to get the KO, so I might as well overfarm massively here, and now Arc Jet will definitely get the KO from this range. The opponent going to use their final shield just to lose CMP with the next Arc Jet, which does get the KO from that range. Their final Pokemon gonna be a Shadow Sizzle, and Paldean Tauros putting in the work. Arc Jet gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. Didn't even need the Urshifu for that battle. But GG's to that trainer. Into the next battle, we're going to see Ludicolo in the lead. So this is definitely where we want to see it. Of course, they're going to be on Razor Leaf here. What the heck was that? We're going to go for a Trailblaze. Trailblaze, not going to do too much damage, but I can't really go for a close combat there and debuff my defense, because if they do end up shielding, I'm in a lot of trouble there. But they swap into a Shadow Fortress. I'm able to fully Shadow Claw farm them down. They come back in with that Ludicolo. I'm just going to stay in here. Trailblaze, going to grab a shield from the opponent. We get a one single more Shadow Claw that was boosted slightly. I'm now going to come in with the Urshifu, shield up the eligible, look to go for that counter farm down, and they're going to have a Macargo in their back, and this game is absolutely over. Of course, I've got 2 really hard walls to the Macargo. Of course, I could let the Urshifu go down here, but it is an Urshifu showcase. The previous battle, Urshifu literally didn't even do anything, so might as well shield there, fire off the Arc Jet, and of course, double super effective with debuff. Doesn't make a difference. We get the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there, into the next battle. You can see Jellicent in the lead once again. So once again, where we want to see it, they're actually going to say swap into a Gastrodon, and here, this is one of the final battles I did where I was quite tilted. The opponent fires off the Body Slam. I'm fine with that. I actually don't need switch advantage, but I'm going to fire off the Arc Jet expecting to grab a shield. However, I'm only reaching 1 move. Why the heck didn't I just fire off the Dynamic Punch? Dynamic Punch gets the KO there. I maintain alignment. At this point, of course, I was thinking, well, since I didn't grab a shield there, I don't really want to be down a shield, so we are now going to see Poliwrath as their final Pokemon. And if I just maintained alignment, I think this is a relatively comfortable matchup for me. But now, unfortunately, because I am misaligned here, Jellicent, whilst we do have coverage, in a 2-shield scenario here, the opponent will be outpacing me just slightly to these moves, and even these hexes, they're kind of adding up over time to the point where I need to shield Surfs, and if I don't shield Surf here, you're going to see I'm going to be very low. I swap out. I'm hoping to get a few more Shadow Claws through before they can swap, but unfortunately just a couple of them there, and as a result, Trailblaze does connect, but we're actually just barely going to miss out on reaching a second Trailblaze, and I can shield here. I can go for the double kick farm down, but it's just too late at this point. The opponent can just commit to a full hex farm down, and unfortunately, I do lose that game there, but definitely could have just thrown the Dynamic Punch and won that game there. But GG's to that trainer. Into the next battle, we're going to see another Jellicent in the lead. So once again, they are going to stay in. They're probably going to go for a Surf straight away, which they do, but that's fine with me. I'm happy to opt for the extra Shadow Claw here. And again, Surf going to do quite a lot of damage, but Jellicent is typically the hardest answer to my backline, so if I do at least put them into range where a Trailblaze from my Tauros will get the KO, then I'm fine with that. So once again, gonna bank the energy, swap into the Tauros, and the opponent actually going to outpace me, which means this is just going to be a Surf. Surf is resistant damage, doesn't do much damage whatsoever. So now we're going to overfarm, fire off the Trailblaze here, winning CMP. Trailblaze is actually going to be shielded by the Jellicent, so at this point, I'm definitely going to shield as well as they fire off the Surf, and the opponent's going to come in with a Volt Switch Fortress. So we fire off the Arc Jet here. Arc Jet does decent damage because we are boosted. A second Arc Jet will definitely get the KO from this range, but things are going to get slightly awkward. So the opponent's going to reveal their final Pokemon to be a Credilli. So I've got a few options here. I'm going to come in with the Urshifu, but you're going to see I actually get 1 turn bringing lag, a thing that I mentioned a few times on the channel, but typically don't experience much myself. And as a result, things get suddenly really difficult. But Never mind, because the opponent trying to catch the close combat there ends up catching a Trailblaze as I was prepared for it, and now we can full send the close combat. We're boosted, we get the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.